committee room.
Okay, colleagues, good morning and welcome to today's meeting of the Economy Committee. Just to remind members that the committee meeting will be in public session and will be recorded and broadcast throughout Parliament buildings and online. So we've received apologies this morning, members, from Kate Nicholl, from Mr Middleton, and that's it?
That's it.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Is there any declarations of interest, members, at item 2? If not, we'll move to item 3, Chairperson's business. First item, members, is in relation to Harland and Wolff. You may be aware, members, of recent media coverage in relation to the proposed purchase of Harland and Wolff, and was to suggest that members may want to write to the department to seek clarity on what will be brought and whether this will be an asset or liability left with the taxpayer. Is members content with that? Okay, item 3.2, community wealth building. The department's business plan refers to the progression of recommendations from the independent report on community wealth building, and recent assembly questions refer to DFE officials' engagement with the community wealth building initiative to reduce economic activity both in Larne and in the North West. Are members content to write to the department to seek clarity on community wealth building initiatives that they are currently engaged in? Okay, it's agreed. Item 3, motor insurance. The informal meeting with the Association of British Insurers and the Department for Justice took place yesterday. ABI indicated that there were regulatory gaps in respect of claim management companies and in terms of the significantly higher cost of credit hire vehicles here in Northern Ireland. We may wish to write to the department to seek clarity on whether it intends to take any action in respect of either of these to the view of improving motor maintenance skill deficits and reducing motor insurance costs in Northern Ireland. Members content with that approach? Okay, draft minutes then, members, at page 7 of our pack. Are members content that that's a true and accurate reflection of our discussions last week? Members are content. Matters arising. Does anyone want to raise any issue? If not, at page 18 of their packs, there's a covering note from the clerk and a suggested response on the draft programme for government from the committee. Obviously, members.
Sure. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
No, I'll let you finish your sentence.
Yeah.
It's just a matter arising from the.
No problem. So, obviously, members, this does not supplement any individual or party political responses that members of this committee may wish to make in their party political capacities, but it's just a number of issues that the clerk has highlighted that we as a committee may be interested in at this stage. Peter, is there anything you want to say on that?
Perhaps, do you want to go to Mr. Buckley?
Yes,
first?
sure. Jonathan.
Yeah, no, Chair, it was a matter, obviously we had a considerable discussions in the minutes last week in relation to the airport and the City of Derry Airport, and about the finance surrounding the government's case to support that. You know, I just think there is for me further questions, you know, and I just wanted to know, could we as a committee write to that? I think we did maybe probe in some of them, but does a business case exist? And does it justify the liability? Because from my just research into this, obviously there's something in the region of 3 airlines, 35 departures per week. 19 of these serve London Heathrow with Loganair, which I believe actually is subsidised by the UK taxpayer under the PSO public service obligation, which is subject to annual renewal. I didn't hear any conversation around whether or not there is clarity about whether that PSO will be renewed in the future, which, if it isn't, would give even more cause for concern in relation to the liability. So just some questions that I would have. I'm not sure if it could be included through yourself in writing to the department, because I don't think we got clarity on those issues.
I think, Chair, we have written, as the member knows, to the department about the City of Derry Airport, I think maybe twice actually. So I know I did also ask them questions about the business case and liabilities. So maybe members content to wait for that answer, and we should get that next week. And if we don't get the answers to the questions the members asked, then would we put them then?
Yeah, so 2 issues. One, I believe we have the department coming next week on air rates and air connect.
That's after Halloween.
Oh,
yes.
after Halloween. Okay, so if we haven't got that answer by next week, we can follow that up. The situation slightly developed now, Jonathan, in that you may have seen there was an announcement from the Minister for Infrastructure yesterday to say that he was now allocating the £3 million directly rather than the department in this financial year. I, in my personal capacity, have asked a number of questions as to how the money is transferred from the Department for the Economy to the Department for Finances. That's a cross-cutting issue and obviously hasn't gone to the executive, but that's my personal capacity, not as chair of the committee. So if we haven't got answers by next week, we can certainly raise those again.
Yeah, and then with a view to getting a further answer when they come to briefing us in early November on air connectivity. If members are content with that approach, Chair.
Yep. Just in relation to the programme for government responses or anything, Peter, you wanted to flag?
So just members, if you turn to page 19, we did take some evidence on this last week and I've included a suggested response. I'm suggesting that the committee welcomes the prominence of the economy in the PFG and welcomes also the related actions on skill up and apprenticeships. And then if we look at the page 20, the first paragraph, we're seeking a wee bit further clarity on related matters such as McGee expansion, sub-regional planning, employment law changes. The second and third paragraphs on page 20 deal with how progress is measured. So there's a fairly limited data set and there aren't productivity measures yet, though those are understood to be probably in development. Turning to paragraphs 4 and 5 at page 20, this deals with accountability. So the previous programme for government, what you had was a list of indicators and actions, and then there were senior officers were identified. And that hasn't happened this time. So what I'm suggesting is that departments may wish to develop an accountability matrix, and I've appended one to show what that might look like from the previous programme for government, and that they do that. And the sixth paragraph calls for linkages with the investment strategy, which I expect there to be. So hopefully the committee will be pushing an open door there. So if members are content with that approach or want me to amend.
Members content?
Sinead.
Oh, Sinead, how are you?
I think Sinead wants to come in broadcasting. If you switch on the mic, there we go.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope you hear me. Sorry, I just want to comment on the airport piece as well. I think it's concerning that we're talking about profitability of a small regional airport. The reason that we have the small regional airport there's is because of just that connectivity for places and spaces that are not well connected, and that's why there's a public service order. And if you look at the Scottish model, there's lots of airports in the Highlands. None of them are profitable or viable, but they're there for connectivity for the people that live there and reside there. So when we're talking about business cases, and there was a lot of questioning of the Permanent Secretary last week in relation to that profitability piece, that is never going to weigh up in a business case, and we all know that, and it is supported for those other reasons, and I just want to put that on record. And in relation to the programme for government and the response of the Economy Committee, obviously as opposition, I will have very different views in terms of targets, accountability, and governance, etc. So that needs to be, we can't all talk with one voice in a response from the Economy Committee, because I will be in a different page than probably most of my colleagues around the committee table.
Okay, yeah, no, firstly, Sinead, very valid point you make in relation to the airport. You and your colleagues are tireless champions for the Northwest, and I wouldn't expect you to put forward any other case than the one that you did. And your points, and important that you make, are on the record. As I say, some of the questions that I've tabled are not in my capacity as chair of the Economy Committee, but as DUP spokesperson on the issue for the economy. And in no way any remarks that I have made can be attributed to my role as chair of the Economy. Every member of this committee has a rightly different view on the issue, and they are entitled, and I will continue to facilitate their ability to make those important points. Secondly, in relation to the programme for government, that was the kind of point that I was trying to make at the start, that the committee has a wide and varied view on this, both as committee members who are members of parties of the executive and those that are in the official opposition. I think what the clerk was trying to do was not in any way speak for the entire committee or other supplement party political or wider views, but just as to try and come together that we as a committee have a number of points that we're all agreed on. So I think that your points are on the record, and we can obviously put within our response, Peter, that this in no way reflects or takes away from individual party political or individual views that people may wish to put into the programme for government.
Okay, Chair, if that's agreed.
Members content?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much with that. The only other matters arising, members will have seen business for the next week, published last night by the Business Office. So we had discussed on a number of occasions the proposed uplift of the RHI tariff by the department. That's now been tabled for Monday, and obviously members will then be able to discuss the issue on the floor of the Assembly. Moving then, members, to item number 6. Delighted to welcome back representatives from both Invest Northern Ireland and the department, who will now give us an update on the implementation of the action plan for Invest NI and their business plan for 24-27. I refer members to page 45 of the table pack, which includes correspondence on the regional property programme. Delighted to welcome a regular visitor now to the committee, Mr. Kieran Donoghue, Invest NI Chief Executive, and Paul Grocott, who is the Head of Economic Strategy at the department. Gentlemen, you're both very welcome back to committee, and I'll hand over to you both at this stage.
With your permission, we both have prepared very brief opening statements, just by way of introduction to the briefing pack that we've already provided. So I'll start and then hand over to Kieran. Firstly, just to welcome new members of the committee. You're very welcome, and congratulations to party colleagues who have new challenges ahead of them. Thank you for the opportunity for briefing on the Independent Action Plan. You will see from the papers that we've provided, and familiar from our last briefing, there are 35 actions that we prepared to address the findings and recommendations of the independent review. Over the past year that we've been working on this, we've made great progress. So the 17 of those 35 actions are now complete, and we are on track to deliver 11 more in this calendar year. The division of responsibility is that Invest NI has responsibility for delivering those actions, and Kieran will provide more detail on that. The role of the department in this phase is to provide that strategic oversight and support to ensure that we are delivering, and then when we take a step back, that we are in fact delivering that profound change that the independent review called for. Hopefully it will have been clear from the pack that we provided and then in the evidence that we provide today that we are making significant progress. But we are acutely aware that there remains a significant amount of work to do in that transformation journey, and we still are committed to that. So if you're content, Chair, I'll just hand over to Kieran to provide some opening remarks from Invest perspective.
Thanks, Paul. Chairman, members of the committee, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to join you this morning to provide an update on delivery of the implementation of the action plan, and to brief you on the associated transformation taking place in Invest Northern Ireland. Since joining the organisation at the end of January this year, I think it's fair to say that my experience has been of a very professional, dedicated team at Invest Northern Ireland that has delivered the targets set for it and is actively engaged in implementing the recommendations of the Lions Review. I think it's time for change in the organisation, and the recommendations that we're implementing will bring about that change. As you know, the action plan was developed jointly between us and our colleagues in the department. I'm observing excellent progress in terms of delivering the actions. To date, we have 17 actions completed, with another 11 due to be completed by the end of this year. Some of the actions that we have completed to date include the appointment of a new CEO and a new chair, a new communications and engagement strategy, a review and rationalisation of our programmes, a new regional strategy, a new land and property strategy, a new approach to reviewing the effectiveness of our board, and a new approach to sourcing alternative funding. Our October board, next week, 4 more actions will be presented to that board meeting, including a review of our overseas office footprint, a new corporate performance monitoring reporting framework, and a new approach to how we manage our portfolio of clients. In September this year, the Northern Ireland Civil Service Internal Audit Team concluded a very positive review of our implementation of the action plan and concluded that implementation to date had been satisfactory. It also noted very effective cooperation and communication between us and our colleagues in the department, and with the sharing of information. As members will be aware, at my last engagement with you, Minister Murphy had launched his regional economic plan, and regional development will be a key focus of both our new strategy and of our response to the Lions Review. Overall, I'm pleased with the progress we have made in implementation of the actions to date. Our draft 3-year business strategy is out for public consultation. A copy of that new strategy was provided to the committee. We're having some very positive feedback from a range of consultations that we're having on that strategy, and we would welcome your comments and feedback on our response to the actions in the lines review and to any comments you might have in the overall new strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Kieran. Colleagues, if anyone does have any questions, if they could just indicate at this stage. Paul, just if I could start with you, just in relation to a couple of issues. So the new partnerships that the department or with the minister outlined in his sub-regional economic plan, 45 million pounds over the next 3 years. So when we had the Permanent Secretary last week, he stated that that would come from funds that are already in the department. When I was reading the 3-year financial information, that's classified as a bid for additional funding for that. So just wanted to clarify which is it. Is there funding already being secured that it'll be within the current budget, or why is it classified then within the 3-year forward look in terms of financial pressures that they're going to bid for additional funding to fund?
I'm not sure about the technical aspect of the bid, but certainly that our working assumption is that the money will be within the existing department spending, and that's the conversations that we're having with spending colleagues. Obviously that's limited at the moment because we don't know what the department's budget is into the next year, or if we open up into a spending review over the 3-year period. But that's from a policy perspective, working on the assumption that comes from within our budget. I can find out from finance colleagues on the technical matter of a bid, absolutely, and come back to you.
And then just in that same document, it says that in the 3-year budget information that Invest NI's investment outside of Belfast, the target's 75%, but within the sub-regional economic plan, that's put down as 65%. So is that just a typo?
So I haven't got that technical information, not the specifics. It sounds like a typo, but if you permit me, we can look into that and come back and confirm that.
Perfect. And then just the last one for you. You've provided written advice to Invest Northern Ireland to align their activities with the Minister's priorities, is that right?
Yeah, certainly. So at the start, we provided advice on issues where Invest required a bit more information. So for example, Good Jobs was an area where it was an emerging area of policy. As a delivery organisation, it needed a bit of a better sense from policymakers how that was. And policy making is continuous. So there is a continuous conversation between policy teams and operational teams, whereby if they require a particular piece of clarity, that happens at a working level, is organisationally where that happens the best. We have formal structures whereby we're able to escalate matters where if it becomes a little bit more significant, or if there is a confusion or a misunderstanding between, we're able to discuss that at a senior level and provide that clarity. So it's a continuous and evolving process.
But there's a difference between a conversation between the department and representatives of Invest NI and the department issuing written advice to Invest NI as how they should change their activities based upon the Minister's view.
Yeah. And so at the point of which policy arrives at a position, we find it helpful to put that in writing so our delivery partners understand exactly what we're asking them to do. So
how many occasions have you provided written advice to the Invest Northern Ireland?
The two that immediately come to mind are on Good Jobs and on Regional Balance, the ones that I've been, Regional Balance I was personally involved in. There may be more that I can ask colleagues if that's been
Could you provide a copy of those to the committee?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yeah.
Perfect. Kieran, just a couple of things. Just one to pick up on the review that's coming to your board in relation to the review of the overseas footprint of Invest. What's that? Is that a proposal to close offices?
It's a proposal right now to potentially rationalise the resource allocation in Asia Pacific, because when we've looked at output from that marketplace relative to the resource allocation, there's a question mark about whether we can justify it. Then equally, we're looking at additional opportunities in Europe and North America, so we would pivot some resources towards those markets. They're some of the recommendations contained in the document, but it's subject to discussion at our board chair.
And there's no proposals to reduce footprint anywhere else except that market?
Yes.
No problem. And just in relation to, obviously the executive will be currently working on a new international relations strategy. Has that work in terms of the refocus of Invest's overseas presence been influenced or been discussed with the executive office in terms of the new international strategy and where the focus of the executive's overseas presence wants to be?
I'm not aware, Chair, if there has been discussion at the Executive Office about that matter. Forgive me.
No problem at all. You had talked about important work in terms of attracting new funding models.
Yes.
Could you maybe talk to the committee a bit about that?
Sure. So we were, as part of the Lines Review, we were encouraged to look at alternative sources of funding. So the organisation set up a team in partnership with the department to do that. And I'm pleased to report to the committee that we've been successful in securing funding from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and from other sources. Up to £20 million of investment from those alternative funding sources has been secured. And that enabled us to release some of our own, if you will, in-house funding, release it back to the block and replace it with that alternative sources of funding. So that's been a positive development.
And then finally for me, Kieran, just in terms of your previous experience in the Republic, and obviously the Irish government had always been keen to try and push regional balance, and on some occasions had additional incentives for potential overseas investors to go to particular parts of the Republic. Just in your view, what was the success rate of that? Is there any lessons that in terms of you can bring here to Northern Ireland in terms of how you go about doing that, how you can ensure regional balance, but also some examples perhaps maybe where the government pushed to have it in particular locations, but ultimately investors said no, we want to be in the economic heart, in Dublin, and moved other places because the government's focus was rather trying to get them to go somewhere that they didn't want to go.
So there are some valuable lessons from the experience of the Republic which we could adapt for local circumstances here. So in the Republic, the government at a certain point in time became concerned that there was excessive levels of investment going into the Greater Dublin area, and that if that wasn't tackled, it could create a situation over time where there would be diseconomies of scale, that all of that investment would bid up operating costs for existing companies and potentially make Dublin unattractive as a location for investment over time. So there was an efficiency argument to be made about directing more investment outside Dublin, and then there was the social equity aspect of that issue. So if all of the investment is accruing to a particular area, in this case Dublin, people that live in other parts of the country would be denied the benefits of investment in or near their local areas. So IDA Ireland was tasked to deliver a minimum of 50% of its investments outside the Greater Dublin area over an agreed period of time. So the organisation then would have modified its targeting model and sent a clear signal to its operating teams that you now need to try and drive more investment to regions outside the Greater Dublin area, while at the same time acknowledging the ongoing importance of Dublin as an overall basis for attracting investment into the jurisdiction. It took several years, but that target was eventually achieved. I would say the three principal reasons why that target was achieved was, first, in investment promotion agencies, executives modify their behaviour in response to targets. So if you set targets, people that work in investment promotion agencies tend to be very target oriented, so they drive themselves to achieve the targets. That was the experience in IDA. Secondly, a regional property programme. So IDA put land and property assets in those other regions so that they had turnkey solutions to facilitate higher levels of investment. So when an investor, for example, went to Galway or to Sligo or to Donegal, there was a property solution there for them, which meant that the decision to invest there was made easier for them. And IDA Ireland would have also increased the level of funding provided to investors willing to go to those locations. So it was the combination of those elements that enabled them to achieve that target of 50% of investments outside Dublin over time. I think the thought process within Invest in relation to the new target that we've been given of 65% of all investments outside the Greater Belfast metropolitan area is following a similar logic. We have proposed a new regional property programme, so we will have those land and property assets distributed in other regions around Northern Ireland to make them more attractive for investment. Our teams will be motivated now by that new target of 65% outside the Greater Belfast metropolitan area. So that would hopefully pave the way for us to deliver more investment. But again, not at the expense of Belfast. We recognise the importance of Belfast to the overall Northern Ireland economy, and will continue to attract and win investment for the Belfast area.
Yes, sir. I'll go in the room first. David?
Okay. Sorry, thank you, guys. Thank you for coming in. it's all about business. So, what are the key issues Invest see at the minute with our local companies? What are the key, and if I think of the 7 sort of industries that are focused, what are the key issues that they're facing today that Invest can help with?
So I've travelled extensively around Northern Ireland and met with our clients in various regions, various locations around Northern Ireland. And when I talk to our clients, the top 3 challenges that they mention to me is firstly the availability of people, secondly the availability of people with the right skills for their business, thirdly the availability of land and property. Many clients have reported to me that they could reinvest if we in Invest and I could facilitate that investment in one of our sites or land holdings. And in many parts of Northern Ireland right now we don't have enough land to accommodate those reinvestments. Hence our proposal to our colleagues in the department for that new regional property programme. Other companies have encountered constraints around securing water services, so access to the mains. So we have discussed that with the CEO of Northern Ireland Water and have established a very positive working relationship with that organisation. And on occasion, some companies have had challenges getting adequate power or connectivity to the grid. So we've reached out to the Managing Director of Northern Ireland Networks and have had a very positive discussions with them. And on occasion, both organisations have responded very positively to particular specific challenges faced by specific companies in specific areas. Beyond that, the challenges faced by companies relate to the specifics of their industry and of their company. So at the moment, for example, in Mid-Ulster, some of the crushing and screening companies are reporting that maybe sales this year will not be what they were hoping for because there's been a cyclical downturn in demand for their products at a global level, partly related to their customers pressing pause on investment decisions related to the geopolitical or broader economic cycle or to the interest rate environment, but that they're hopeful that next year orders will bounce back. So a combination of overall environmental challenges and then challenges specific to the sector or to the company in question.
Okay, so if I look at that land, I mentioned before, I'm being very territorial here in Lagan Valley and the Blairist site, but is the model then you're looking at, you've just mentioned to Philip in a question there, that's kind of turnkey. I've been to Dundalk, I've visited a few in the south, and that's kind of the model they've had, and they build it and they'll come. Is that now the approach investors are looking at for land? So it's not just owning land, but it's actually developing the infrastructure, if you like, and then leaving a blank canvas for the companies to come and invest. Is that the model you're looking at going forward?
Yes, that's the model that we would like to adapt, where we're currently a landowner, but we need to supplement that. We need to buy at least 300 to 400 acres of land over the next 10 years. We need to partner with infrastructure providers, whether that's water services or power or broadband, and put advanced offices on those buildings and then actively market those sites to international investors, but also to local industry that might want to either establish on that site or expand onto that site. That's the model we would like to pursue, because that means we're putting the infrastructure in place within the regions to make them more attractive for investment, both foreign and domestic, over time.
Yeah, you can show you the 300 acres that you can find. We can have it all in the metropolitan area, and like in Valley, Sinead can just, I can see a face just looking at me with the glare of eyes. But listen, if I move on then, if I look at the mission of Invest, okay, so the mission is twofold basically. So you have a mission statement there that says it's helping increase productivity in our local companies, and then it's looking at complete sort of inward investment as the two sort of strands. That those to me seem like they're two competing visions. But if I look at then the targets, you have an export target of an increase of 16% roughly. I think the output was 16%. You want to grow that 16%, which is great. And I think the FDI input, the target is 60 companies and 30. That's a 33% increase in. So that seems like a massive change in direction. Is there a change in direction, or what's changed?
So, to drive the growth of the Northern Ireland economy in the future, our considered view is that we need to do three things at a minimum. Firstly, we need all of the existing companies that are here to reinvest regularly, both domestic and foreign. Secondly, we need more people in Northern Ireland who are either currently entrepreneurs or considering setting up a business to do so, because we need them to establish new firms. And then we need to continue to win more foreign direct investment. So working with local industry and at the same time attracting foreign direct investment, they're not mutually exclusive. We need to do both. Now, when you look at the target, the FDI target we've set, the 33% increase, that sounds like a huge jump, but in absolute terms, it's not. Because right now, the run rate in terms of annual foreign direct investment projects into Northern Ireland is 15. So over the life of this strategy, we're going to move that from 15 a year to 20 a year, because it's going to take us time to engage with those investors and to convince them to select Northern Ireland. I still think that 20 is too low, but it's the beginning of a process of growing that pipeline. Some of our competitors, some very close to here, are winning 100 new investments into the jurisdiction each year. I believe we are capable of at least 50 a year when you control for the size of the economy, the size of the labour market, and of 50? The population. Yeah, minimum of 50 a year. That's what we would aim to do. But we won't achieve that within the lifetime of the current strategy, which is just 3 years. I think we can get to at least 20. All of the targets in our proposed new strategy as well are minimum targets. So they're a floor, they're not a ceiling. So if we can exceed those targets, that would be the preference.
I love the ambition, and I wish you all the very best. On that, I've just got. Well, here I'll leave that, because the ambition's there, and that's I welcome that genuinely. I think that is perfect. You mentioned also into the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and the regional entrepreneur. Can you expand on what that looks like, or what that is for local? Again, come back to local businesses.
It predates me, but there was a
I can pick up. Yeah, so it's an established program whereby MIT bring in regional administrations, and it's a collection of individuals. So it's got government, businesses, and then delivery organisations, and it's helping those people understand, look, if you want to drive entrepreneurship, how do you do it? For us here, there are must-win battles, and that's about the culture of entrepreneurship and how we support a greater number of innovation-driven enterprises. And that team of people is now working through, okay, how would we implement and deliver that? And that starts with having a team at the centre that's responsible for this, that draws in all those actors and coordinates them in a way that makes sense for the people that Kieran talked about that are thinking about starting a business or at the early stages start a business, to ensure that the support they get arrives at the right time, and then it travels them through their journey. It's a volume game in simple terms. We need more people starting a business, we need more people scaling, and then we need more people sort of reaching the super heights, at which point you're into FDI territory as well.
So you'll have noted, David, in the draft new strategy, a target for a minimum of 450 new startups that will be onboarded as new clients of Invest NI. So that relates to that focus on entrepreneurship. We've set up a new team within Invest to focus in on entrepreneurship, and we will be partnering with the councils and with the local enterprise agencies and other stakeholders right across Northern Ireland to mobilise interest in people establishing those firms that will in turn then become clients of Invest, and we will support them to establish, scale and grow and export over time.
Is there any work in taking that age bracket way lower? So we're looking at people who are thinking of starting a business and have been there and done it, and you're changing it's a mindset change of what you're trying to do, but it's hard to change your mind whenever you're kind of in your 20s, 30s. Is there any work happening within our education system, or looking younger to bring innovation through our school system?
So we have a very, very excellent relationship with Young Enterprise Northern Ireland. We had them into our office recently for an award ceremony. These are very young kids in primary and secondary school, second level. And my colleagues have gone into schools right across Northern Ireland to explain to students the benefits and the opportunities associated with beginning entrepreneurs. So we are starting at that level to sow the seed so that their mindset, their psychology before they even go into university is getting them interested in business.
Yeah, and that's one of the findings from the MIT group, that
Yeah.
culture of entrepreneurship is the first must-win battle you have to do. And like it's a great story. We'd be happy to provide a bit of an update if you're interested in that. The team's got a
My
great story.
local friend school won the Young Enterprise, so I'll give him a share as well. Thank you very much.
My popcorn selling business when I did it at school didn't quite materialise in that. And now I'm stuck doing this. Padraig?
Thank you, Chair. Just checking. You can hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you. So look, thanks for your presentation and for your answers so far. I suppose I wanted to touch on a couple of areas. You've already touched on regional balance, so I'll come to that second. The first one was around, I suppose, cross-border connectivity and ensuring that there is an all-Ireland economy. And I think you're in your, I suppose, uniquely placed, given your expertise and experience in IDA as well. One of the big I suppose barriers that we could potentially see is that areas in border regions could be in competition rather than working in a complementary environment. So, for example, I'm obviously in Derry. You can probably tell from the accent. So, for example, in Letterkenny, how do we ensure that companies are actually complementing the skill set in the region and I suppose the economic potential of the region as well? And I suppose in that question as well, if you're able to identify any barriers that you see to this and how you think they should be overcome.
So as I said, I have made a point of visiting many parts of Northern Ireland over the last 8 months. I've been up to the northwest regularly. And what has most impressed me about people that live in or near those border counties is their interest in establishing relationships on an all-island basis. So when you go to the northwest, they think in terms of a city region. So when they're presenting their value proposition for investment, they make a deliberate effort to include assets in the Republic in the value proposition to attract investment in Northern Ireland. And they do that in partnership with the authorities and with their peers and other stakeholders that might be based in Letterkenny. So in my experience, I've already seen efforts by communities that live on either side of the border to work together for their mutual benefit. So in practice, you have a situation where there's cooperation and competition coexisting. And that's a pragmatic recognition of reality. So people in Derry will put their best foot forward and present a value proposition to encourage people to invest in the Northwest, in Derry or Strabane. They will point to assets and capabilities that reside in the Republic that could support investors to invest in Derry or Strabane, and the authorities in the Republic do exactly the same thing. So that would suggest to me that there should be some optimism there about everyone working collectively for their mutual benefit. Are there challenges to more of this? Yes, in the sense that the infrastructure offering in different locations will vary. So if you have an investor, for example, that's very utility intensive, needs lots of power or water or broadband, that might bias the decision towards one location or another. But that's to be expected in this context. Ultimately, as long as we win the investment for the communities right across the island, north and south, that's the main thing.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, that's definitely something that we see firsthand working with businesses in the region as well. Just on that regional balance, I'm keen to understand, maybe I suppose dig a bit deeper into that, to really get a sense of one of the things that I think has been really useful with the McGee task force is that people know that there's the ambition of getting to 10,000, but it actually has set out the exact steps and how we get there. And I'm keen to understand in terms of your strategy for regional balance, which is very welcome and I think very well needed. How do you see that step by step? How do you see the kind of incremental build up? So, for example, is there a strategy that works on property first, then personnel? Is there a crossover there? What are the exact timeframes? Because I'm conscious that while we obviously know that your target, and that's great to see, I'd be keen to just get a better understanding of exactly what that looks like, and are there any targets within that broader target as well?
So the headline target is 65% of all investments, emphasis investments. So it's not the volume of investment, it's the number of individual investment projects. In our new strategy, we've set a target of a minimum of 5,000. So we're aiming as a public body to ensure that those 5,000 are distributed across all of Northern Ireland, but with a minimum of 35% going into the Belfast metropolitan area, that's a minimum, and a minimum of 65% outside the Greater Belfast area. Then in terms of operationalising that, we in Invest and I are going to move from a 4 operating region model to a 5 operating region model. So we have offices right now in Belfast, in Newry, in Omagh, in Derry, Londonderry, and in Ballymena. We're going to increase the number of people working in each of those offices, and those people will be responsible for driving the achievement of the targets in each of those operating regions. So what we've done is we've taken the 5,000 investments and we've disaggregated those across our 5 operating regions. So all of my colleagues that work in that region know how many investments they have to win every year from now to the end of our strategy. So that's going to motivate them to drive the achievement of those targets. We're going to produce what we're calling a regional strategic agenda, which will be a statement of all of the strengths, but also the weaknesses and threats and opportunities confronting each region. We're going to work with the local councils and other stakeholders then to craft a value proposition which emphasises the reasons why people should establish businesses in this region or why international investors should consider it for investment. Then in parallel, we've already begun the process of identifying suitable sites to acquire land consistent with our new regional property programme. So it's a combination of all of those elements that we will have already begun implementing to deliver on that regional balance goal, but it will take time. The target of 65% of investments outside the Greater Belfast area is a significant uplift, and it will be challenging to achieve, but we're motivated to achieve it. One of the reasons why I have confidence that over time we can achieve it is right now, close to 60% of all of the clients in the Invest in I portfolio, they're already located outside the Greater Belfast area in and near their communities. So re-engaging with those firms and getting them to reinvest where they are already located will give us an opportunity, will give us a fighting chance of achieving that target. If we can then strengthen our value proposition for each of the regions, build up our foreign direct investment pipeline, we'll be bringing in international investment and showcasing those regions and giving them reasons to invest all across Northern Ireland. So we've set a target for new firm formation, reinvestments out of the installed base of clients, and foreign direct investment in each of those 5 operating regions. So the teams there are clear about our ambition and what we expect of them over the next 3 years. Forgive me, that was probably an extremely long explanation to your question.
No, it's great because it's given us that detail, and I think having, as I say, those targets within targets is essential. Yes. As well. And one of the things which we've seen with quite a number of businesses is that they have the desire to come here, but as you've mentioned, maybe they haven't been able to acquire a site, or there have been issues with one thing or another, infrastructure, whatever. So if we're able to plan ahead and actually expect that and ensure that those are there, then it allows them to have a smoother transition. Just final point is on recruitment. So one of the things which obviously we're seeing right across is a recruitment crisis in terms of getting the people with the relevant skills into these roles. And I'm conscious that a lot of the roles in Invest require specific skills, whether that's in research and development and in other areas. Do you see that as a barrier to achieving this regional balance? And if so, how are Invest working to overcome that? But secondly, what work is there ongoing with the department to get people with the relevant skills and to ensure that people can be upskilled, reskilled to get into the workforce? Thank you.
Just to clarify the question, Padraig, is it in relation to the hiring of people and skills within Invest or more broadly?
Well, primarily within Invest,
Okay.
but more broadly as well, yeah.
Specifically in relation to Invest's regional balance strategy, we now have agreed with our board that we will increase our staffing across our regional office network by about 40%. So in absolute terms, that works out at about 21 people. So each of our offices will have roughly 4 to 5 additional people put into those offices. The focus of those people is going to be on business development. So I want the organisation to be very target driven. So at the end of the 3 years, I can come back to this committee and say, these are the number of investments that we have won. These are the number of new firms we've helped create. These are the foreign investors that we've attracted to Northern Ireland. And these are the economic and social benefits flowing from their activity. So we want people in the offices engaging with the existing clients and talking to companies to convince them to reinvest by connecting them with our service offering and with all of our range of programs. In terms of finding those 21 people, it'll be a combination potentially of redeployment of existing people within Invest. I've already in my staff briefing said to people, given the importance that we attach to regional development, I'd like people to put their hands up and volunteer to help drive this agenda within Invest. And I'm pleased to report to the committee that several people have come to me and said, Kieran, this is part of the strategy that we'd like to personally put our shoulder to the wheel. Many of these people live in regional communities and therefore understand at a deep personal level the importance of this agenda and want to participate in it. So that will fill some of the resource need. Then, where necessary, if there's particular skills we need, we'll go to the external marketplace and we will recruit, and there'll also be internal promotional opportunities. Are we encountering some challenges in hiring people? Yes, depending on the role. So the lead time to hire people can be as low as 3 months, but it can potentially take 9 months to a year. I don't expect that we'll encounter any major challenges hiring people for these roles because we're looking for core business development skills, people that are good at establishing relationships and having conversations with companies and with international investors. And I wouldn't consider the roles that we're going to look for as particularly technical. I think where we will maybe encounter some challenges is in hiring people with specialist skills around land acquisition and conveyancing and the legal work associated with buying land and dealing with putting infrastructure in place. So you may need more engineering skills, more technical, legal and planning skills. That could be challenging, so it might take a bit more time to hire those particular people.
Okay, that's great. Look, those really comprehensive sort of answers there. I have a few more questions, but I'm happy to follow up on writing because I'm conscious that other people want them as well. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Patrick. Sinead?
Good morning, and good to see you, Paul, and Kieran back at committee again. And a lot of work has been done in, since you last have been there. Look, I think many of us around this committee will really welcome the fact that we can see firm target in relation to investments outside the Belfast area. And we've been championing it for a long time in our party. Here, just a little bit of clarity there from your last answer. You indicate obviously 65% of investment outside. Is that in pounds outside the Belfast area? Because you've been very clear. You're saying that's investments, but individual activities, or is it in pounds? Because I can see a problem here immediately that very big major investments go to Belfast, and that's counted as one, and maybe smaller investments go to the sub-regions, and that's still counted, and you're making your target. So, how do you monitor that if it's not on the value of the investments, if it's on just activities?
Oh, it's 65%. So the headline target that we've set for investments is 5,000. So let me give you an example of an investment. It could be a company establishing for the first time, because that will be an investment. It could be a company investing in research and development or innovation, a company upskilling its staff, a company investing in automation equipment. So there's a range of investments, and we will have clear investment criteria that define what an investment is. So the measure is the number of investment projects, which will involve clients committing capital. They're going to have to invest money to establish these investments, and there will be employment associated with many of those investments as well. So it's not the value of the investments, it's actually the number of the investments. Is there a risk that all of the high value investments will accrue to the Belfast area? There is a risk, but I think it's a manageable risk because 60% of our portfolio of existing clients, which includes fabulous engineering firms in Mid-Ulster, it includes companies like Seagate and Alchemy in the Northwest. They're the type of companies that we're going to be re-engaging with to get them to reinvest in their regions. So I don't believe that all of the high value investments will accrue to the Belfast metropolitan area. In fact, potentially one of the largest R&D projects that we will win will come from a client outside the Belfast area within the next 6 to 12 months.
And Kieran, will you be monitoring that just to make sure that we're not creating?
Yes,
further
we will be
imbalance
monitoring as part of our new corporate performance framework. We will be monitoring not only the quantitative number of investments that we're winning in particular regions, but also the quality of those investments as well, to guard against the risk that you've drawn attention to.
And Sinead, just to pick up, I think there's, sorry, Sinead, I was just going to add a bit more assurance from a departmental level. You know, we're acutely alive to the risk of hitting the target but missing the point. That Invest and I's contribution, and indeed all of the DFE families' contributions, need to feed into our business plan targets. So we will not achieve our productivity and regional balance targets. Those indicators that we published at the back of our business plan, they will not be achieved if the type of scenario that you described materialises. That has to, you know, as Kieran's described, that type of activity has to be spread through the regions in order for that productivity and regional balance to be achieved at a macro level.
Just building what Paul has said as well, Sinead, when my colleagues talk to firms outside the Belfast area, but also indeed within the Belfast area, we will be encouraging them to undertake particular high value activities as well. So Invest NI isn't going to be a passive receiver of investment proposals from companies. We will be sitting down in front of them all across Northern Ireland, encouraging them to undertake high value activities with our assistance within their regions and local communities. So that in turn will guard against that risk that you've alluded to.
And Kieran, will there be enhanced incentives for those investors to make those high value investments outside of the Belfast metropolitan area? Because there has to be an advantage in doing so.
So when it comes to supporting companies that are already within the region, so whether they're foreign owned or locally owned, whether they're in Derry, Londonderry or Omagh in Enniskillen, we will sit down with them, have the conversation with them and encourage them to invest, say in R&D. Once we receive their proposal to invest in R&D, we will do evaluation on the merits of that investment proposal, and then depending on our assessment of the quality of the proposal, we will put an appropriate funding package together while having a duty of care to public funds. So we will provide the right level of funding to incentivise the activity in every single location. Now, if you pivot then from an Indigenous company to a foreign direct investor, our job is to firstly convince that investor to select Northern Ireland. That's step one. If we never convince them to come to Northern Ireland, we won't have to worry about where they locate within Northern Ireland. So once we've convinced them to come to Northern Ireland, we will then have a conversation with them and assess their needs, because the key thing we have to achieve is get them to Northern Ireland and then direct them to a location where that investment will be successful for them commercially over the long term. Because that will be the basis for A, reinvestment on their part over time, and it'll also have a halo effect and potentially attract other investments from other companies. If that company says to us, it has to be Belfast for these reasons, we will accommodate that and we will provide a funding package to make sure they select Belfast. But if that company says to us, we're actually locationally agnostic about where we go, so we'd be happy to go to Derry, Londonderry, or Omagh, or Newry, or Enniskillen. In the context of the government's policy priority regional balance, it would then make sense for us to make a very attractive funding package to convert that investment into a regional location, because we don't believe that that will be at Belfast's expense over the long term, because there will be other opportunities for Belfast. There may be only one opportunity to land a foreign direct investment into a particular location outside the Belfast area. So we will calibrate the funding packages depending on the requirements of the firm and the context at that particular time, making judgments on a case-by-case basis.
Right, Ciara. So is that what you actually are referring to in page 35 of the investment strategy? And it states that Invest NI will factor regional balance into all investments decision. Is that exactly what you mean, that factoring in?
Yes.
And you know, or is there any other ways that this will be achieved?
No, the reason, what I've outlined is going to be the mindset, the psychology that we're going to take in relation to locationally mobile investments. So we have to differentiate here between those clients that are already in a regional setting, where the conversation will be about getting them to reinvest, and that will deliver a flow of benefits for the local community and the region in which that firm is located. And then a foreign direct investor, which by definition is more locationally mobile, and which we have more latitude to shape their thinking about where they locate in Northern Ireland. So that's the approach that we're going to take. And clearly, we will evolve our approach depending on the nature of the engagements that we have with companies, both foreign and domestic.
Chair, can I ask a few more questions here? Will you afford me some more time?
Yeah.
Okay, so Ciara, in the paper, item 25 of the strategic action to enhance sub-regional network, it's marked as complete. Can you just tell us how much resources have increased in each of the sub-regions? You've indicated, you know, the 40% increased, staffing to those areas. You know, so are they in place? Because from the previous answer, you were still in a recruitment process or engagement process in terms of business development. So can you just, indicate what you mean by complete?
Sure. So by complete, I mean that our new regional strategy was agreed by our board in September, which is relatively recently. The Minister, as you know, launched his regional action plan this month. So on that basis, we have now begun the process of implementing the recruitment drive associated with staffing up our regional offices. I referred earlier to an increase of 40%. That works out at 21 people. So the HR team now have sat down and we've looked at the potential grades of those roles. It'll be staff officer up to grade 6. We have created a pool of people at staff officer grade that we can now select from to put those people into those regional roles, and we're also working up job descriptions associated with the other roles. So the hiring process has only begun now, because my approach to these things is systematic. You need to know what it is you want to achieve and how. So that's the strategy piece. You then need to put the structures and the operating model in place and then do the resourcing. So now that we have the Minister's Regional Action Plan, board support for our own regional strategy, we're now in a position to begin that hiring process. But we haven't hired any of those 20 people yet, Sinead. That will be completed between now and Q1, quarter 1 of next year.
Okay, can I ask specifically about the Northwest office? How many new staff will be going into that office? And can you give me the breakdown of just what the job roles are?
Right, we haven't taken a definitive decision in relation to how many people will go into each office. At the moment, as you know, in the Northwest, there's approximately 12 staff. Under this plan, I would see at least another 4 to 5. I can't give you the specifics of what each of those 4 to 5 people will be doing, but it'll be a combination, as I said earlier, of business development, engaging with our clients in the region and getting them to reinvest, working on creating a pipeline of foreign direct investment opportunities and converting those for the Northwest. And there will also be 1 or 2 leadership roles, because we need to work in partnership with the council, the local enterprise agencies, Ulster University, the colleges in the Northwest, etc., to drive this new regional agenda. So it'll be a combination of business development and stakeholder management and ecosystem development roles. The precise mix of that and the specifics of the role are work in progress. Because our regional strategy, as I said, was only approved by our board in September, which is less than 4 weeks ago. So we are moving as quickly as we can, but we had to get the strategy agreed first.
It'll be no surprise for you to hear that I would have liked to have seen a very specific role for the Northwest City region featuring highly. We are the second city. We're more than a sub-region, and we can be a driver for the wider economy. Do you think that this is remiss that we don't have a specific plan for growing the economy in the Northwest, and particularly for a role enhanced, even more enhanced role for Invest NI in order to kind of make sure that regional balance and those targets are reached?
So I had a roundtable consultation on the strategy with a range of stakeholders in the Northwest approximately a week ago. The strategy was well received by them. We had a very frank and constructive exchange of views, and they welcomed the ambition in the strategy, the targets, the fact that we're going to have specific targets for the Northwest region, both on the domestic and foreign direct investment side. And all of the stakeholders in the room said to me, Kieran, we're going to work hand in glove with you to deliver on these targets and make the Northwest more attractive for investment. One of the stakeholders said, Kieran, we just want to be at the table. We want to be given an opportunity by you to put our best foot forward and pitch for the Northwest. And I gave them the assurance that that's what I intend to do. We will have a strategy for the Northwest because, as I mentioned earlier, Sinead, we're going to develop a regional strategic agenda in partnership with these local stakeholders, so we're all on the same page as to the strengths of the region, the weaknesses that we need to address through an advocacy strategy at central government level or local government level as appropriate. We're going to have a shared view of what the value proposition for the region is, and we will involve these stakeholders in meetings with international investors as they come into the region. The Northwest has been one of the most attractive regions and most successful regions for inward investment itineraries since I assumed my new role in January, one of the highest. So the flow through of foreign direct investments into the Northwest over the last 12 to 18 months as a consequence of the work of Invest NI has been very, very impressive, and we will build upon that during the life of this new strategy.
Thank you very much, Kieran. We do have very, very strong partnerships already existing within the Northwest, and I'm sure they'll be very supportive of any moves of Invest NI to support them in their ambition, because their ambition is very, very high. Now, this is the last question, sorry, and it's to Paul. The Minister responded to me to a recent question, Paul, in relation to regional development, and accepted that, you know, he cannot, his department alone cannot deliver regional balance. It requires an all-government approach. So what work have you been doing with other departments in order to support the ambition of regional balance as stated as one of the key visions of the Minister?
I think so. It comes from the programme for government, Sinead, that sets the framework and how we feed into that. And just as we joined the session, the investment strategy for Northern Ireland was mentioned. That's in development, I understand. Those are the structures by which we engage with other departments, how we align economic policy with, for example, colleagues in communities and infrastructure are the big hitters. So that they're the sort of, from a government perspective, they're the mechanisms and structures that we're using to align policy across the executive.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Chair, for your indulgence.
No problem. Diana?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm coming from an angle representing Fermanagh and South Tyrone. I'm glad you referenced Mid-Ulster and the heavy engineering sector and the slowdown there, and hopefully that's just a blip and it's going to resume its prominence, you know, in coming years. But Fermanagh itself has significant regional imbalance problems and you know, challenges there. And we have met before, Kieran, when I was on Fermanagh and Omagh District Council. So my question is really, with the Mid-South West deal, how do you see the regional office working in complement with the Mid-South West deal? Because you'll have regional offices working on the initiatives there for, say, for example, innovation, and how that can propel other businesses, you know, attract other business into those regions. Really, it's how that you're not creating competing regional offices when you've got those targets.
Sure. So what we've done specifically in City and Growth deals is, because we recognise their importance, we view them as vehicles for both sectoral development, the development of specific industries, and the individual companies within those industries, but also as a vehicle for regional development. We've made City and Growth deals one of the key 6 strategic pillars of our overall strategy. So as a consequence of that, it sends a signal to everybody in Invest in I. City and Growth deals really matters. And I've recently had a meeting with Paul and the Permanent Secretary where we reaffirmed our joint commitment to the importance of City and Growth deals. So specifically with respect to the Mid-South West deal, we hope that with the conclusion of the Treasury spending review, that City and Growth deal will progress. And then what we will do is we will incorporate all of the infrastructure and the services that will flow from those City and Growth deal projects in Mid-South West into our value proposition for inward investment. And the local teams working in our OMA office will actually plug clients in to the service offerings emerging out of those City and Growth deal projects within the regions. So we will always be showcasing and leveraging the Mid-South West deal to strengthen the attractiveness of the region for investment in the eyes of investors and plugging existing companies into those services. That's how we propose to deal with
and
it.
just to add, it makes Kieran's job much easier when we work with partners to ensure that those deals focus on both what industry needs and where there's real strength. And Mid-South West is a great example of, industrial land is a key issue there. So that's a central pillar of what the digital and innovation pillars are putting forward. But also there's huge capacity and capability in the decarbonisation agenda, and they're the projects that are coming forward. And that's what will make it significantly more attractive for inward investors and get the spillover effects into the wider economy to try and get the regional balance that we're looking for in that particular region.
And if I may, Chair, there's another question really about community plans. The Fermanagh and Omagh community plan has identified industrial land. If you are looking to acquire more land in the region, is that a challenge that land has been apportioned within a community plan, and how you change the designation of land for commercial or industrial use?
So, forgive me, I may have to come back to you on that question, but logically our approach would be, given the strength of the relationship that we have with the local councils and with the planning authorities, in situations where the existing development plan constrains our ability to win investment, we would use the strength of our local relationships to draw that to the attention of the planners and to the local council and see what can be done to make any necessary modifications to free up land so that we can utilise it for investment purposes. And we will clearly sit down once our land and property strategy is refined at a local level. We will go and sit down with local stakeholders, with the chief executive of the council, with local councillors, with the planning authorities, and say, this is our plan for your local area. What are your views on it? How can you facilitate this? And they may give us constructive feedback saying this would be a better way to go about achieving your objective. That's where that local knowledge and those local relationships is crucial. Just going back on your earlier point as well about our regional teams competing with each other, because the targets for each of our operating regions are confined to that region, they're not competing with each other. They're competing to actually achieve their targets. They're competing with themselves in order to achieve the targets, not with their partners or not with their colleagues in other regions.
Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Kieran and Paul, for your presentation. I suppose, firstly, I'm encouraged to hear your particular point, Kieran, around regional targets not hamstringing foreign direct investment to particular areas. And there will be that level of flexibility if they are site-specific in mind. So just on that point, in Invest NI's experience, how many FDI projects come to the attention of Invest NI, or indeed they want to invest here and are already site-specific in mind?
I'd have to come back. I don't have the specifics of that for you. I would have to go and get that information for you. In terms of in terms of our targeting model, we target a range of foreign direct investment, ranging from manufacturing activity through services. So manufacturing activities, manufacturing projects by their nature, have very site-specific requirements, typically around water, land, and power. So they will be the types of investments that will tend to be more locationally mobile and will probably have a locational bias towards those areas that have available land and those infrastructure assets, Services type investments then by their nature will tend to gravitate towards large market towns, Derry, Londonderry or Belfast. So we know once we engage with the investors, we always ask questions to gauge what their infrastructure or locational requirements will be, and then we design the visit, the itinerary for that investor around those needs to maximise the opportunity for the investor to select Northern Ireland, as I said initially, and then a specific location or region within Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't have the specifics.
Okay, well, look, I would appreciate maybe if we could get those specifics to the committee. But on the point of regional balance, and I'm not going to labour on the point, it has been brought forward at the committee, and we do hear a lot, rightly, from FOIL representatives about the Northwest. They're powerful advocates for their community. But I just want to, again, stress to you and indeed to the committee that there is concern about regional balance right across Northern Ireland. And, even on this committee, we have Lagan Valley, which has specific needs. We have FOIL specific needs, North Belfast, Upper Bann, Fermanagh, South Tyrone. All of these areas have specific needs. All of these areas have something to bring to the table. And I'm just always conscious that I think sometimes in the eyes of officials, and indeed through this committee, that we're constantly being pushed down a road of the Northwest versus Belfast. And I would be very keen just to stress about those wider needs across the network and some fantastic companies that have brought much benefit to Northern Ireland and from an FDI perspective and local Indigenous business. So that's just a point. You mentioned to David in your earlier question about 3 pillars and 3 objectives, which was reinvestment from existing businesses, more FDI, and supporting local entrepreneurship. I suppose probably for me, the poor cousin in all of this is actually the local entrepreneur. I certainly feel that in my experience in dealing with those that are trying to start businesses in Northern Ireland, that they face significant obstacles. They've historically faced significant obstacles in accessing the support packages with Invest NI because of stringent criteria about the point in which Invest NI could intervene to help. You did mention about specific support packages. So in your view, and you might not be able to fully answer this yet, but what sort of financial package would we be talking about for that specific arm and objective? And what programs in particular would you be talking about?
So firstly, in relation to entrepreneurship, setting that target of 450 new startup companies new to Invest NI, that's going to send a signal to the organisation and to the sectoral and operating teams to incentivize entrepreneurship and to engage with those potential new businesses. So that's the first initial step that we need to do, sending that signal about our ambition and the priority that we attach to entrepreneurship. Then the full range of our existing support. So as you know, we will provide grant packages to incentivize companies to invest and to establish. We will also, in appropriate circumstances, be willing to take equity stakes in new entrepreneurial businesses as well. And we have a range of finance programs, some managed by us, others by specialist fund managers, that will be available to relevant businesses as well. So all of our range of services and programs will be on the table, and depending on the specific requirements of the new business or the entrepreneur in question, we will configure the appropriate package to support them. The package just won't be about money either. Oftentimes what entrepreneurs need is information, guidance and advice, introductions to people that have already successfully undertaken that entrepreneurial journey, and that's something that we're willing to do as well. And we have set up a new entrepreneurial focused team within Invest NI. So it's the combination of all of those elements that we hope will smooth the path for those new entrepreneurs in the future. And we are sending a clear signal to the launch of our new strategy in November, and we're having a client day on the 19th of November in advance of our staff conference to launch the new strategy. We're sending a clear signal that we're open for business, and that anyone in Northern Ireland that's contemplating establishing a business, particularly a business with export potential that would generate external sales and export sales over time, should reach out and have a conversation with us.
Okay, and sorry, that date is the 19th of...
The 19th of November.
November, and that will be open to anybody of interest in relation to Invest NI from an entrepreneurial perspective or for
Yes.
an existing client.
So we're going to have it. We're going to invite existing clients to come. A number of them are going to exhibit because we want to remind everybody of the importance of the relationship with the clients and remind everyone of the fabulous commercial success stories that are out there in firms already operating in Northern Ireland. We'll have a website with a registration page, and we would invite people that want to come and see those companies and engage with us to come to that client day on the 19th of November in ICC.
Okay, that's very, very good.
Just before you move on, John, apologies, I just wanted to mention that there's obviously, we're here talking about an Invest business plan. I just wanted to mention the other partners and agencies that are involved in this. There is an ecosystem and a network of support through the local enterprise agencies, local councils, Catalyst and the British Business Bank are also offering services and programs for local entrepreneurs to try and realise the ambitions that we've articulated through the business plan and specifically within the Invest NI strategy.
That's an impressive rate of words per second.
Moving on, just a final sort of point, which is on that other pillar, which is FDI, and we've had conversations about that at the committee before and how important it is. It was mentioned, I think it's in the department's plan, particularly around the unique dual market access. Have we evidence of that unique dual market access?
In what sense? Sorry, Jonathan. In terms of the number of increased exporters that we're looking for. So
so from an FDI perspective, have we had any FDI investment principally around the unique dual market access?
Not to my knowledge at this point in time, not yet. So I think there is still a relatively low level of awareness of the opportunity represented by dual market access. So in recognition of that, and following discussions with our colleagues in the department, we've set up a dedicated team within Invest NI focused in on the issue of dual market access. As I speak, my colleagues in the Minister are in Germany highlighting the dual market access proposition to investors in Germany. So I would expect on foot of that trip, we will have a much better understanding of how the dual market access proposition is perceived, at least in that marketplace. And I think over time, as awareness of the dual market access opportunity increases, that there will in time be FDI opportunities. And of course, given the targets that we've now set for ourselves, that 33% increase in the FDI target over the next 3 years, the dual market access element of our value proposition will be front and centre in discussions with relevant clients, relevant companies.
So to date, there's no evidence. So Dr. Esmond Burney, the senior economist at University of Ulster, his assessment that there is no evidence of unique dual market access benefits at this stage would be correct.
I think it's at an early stage whereby the exact relationship between goods moving between Northern Ireland and GB remains evolving and uncertain. So until that's settled, it's very hard to pinpoint exactly how a business exporting or looking for investment could directly be attributed to those trading arrangements.
How many FDI projects have we secured this year to date?
Forgive me, I don't have the figures to hand, but I'll get them for you. But the typical run rate, so by the end of our operating year, I would expect us to have 12 to 15.
Okay. And do we have what the total was, 23, 22?
It would have been around 15 to 16 projects because that's been the run rate for a number of years.
Okay. Well, I'd appreciate if the committee could be generous with, say, for example, the last 5 years, those total FDI projects year by year. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Kieran. Thanks.
No, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you. And just to start off, and that you don't think that Mid and East Antrim and Causeway Coast and Clans doesn't need investment because they have been left out of everybody's contribution so far. They certainly do, and the indicators prove that point. So at this point, all the big subjects have been covered. You, in answers to a number of members, have talked about the land and property aspect of it and how to make it more attractive for investment. I'm just looking at the table about available land, and there's a bit of disparity. If you look at Mid Ulster, for example, where 97% of land has been acquired, whereas Causeway Coast and Clans, there's only 53% acquired. Is there anything specific reasons why some areas there's difficulty acquiring land as opposed to others?
Some of the difficulties relate to the availability of land zoned for industrial use. So it's just the availability of land zoned for industrial use is one issue. Sometimes there's an issue around the cost of acquiring that land. Sometimes the cost can be prohibitive. And on other occasions, the land mightn't be located in an area where it will be able to receive the necessary infrastructure services within a reasonable time frame. So there's always a variety of reasons why land mightn't be available. For example, in the case of Mid-Ulster, I know out of all of our land holding, we only have 2.6 acres available there right now, because the land that we did have was occupied and utilised by the installed base of clients, because they've been quite successful at expanding over many years, and so they consumed all of our available land assets. Potentially in Causeway Coast and Glen, that wasn't the case.
So there's different factors. So in some areas it's availability of land, in some areas there's lots of land available, but there are other additional factors, whether it's infrastructure or cost, etc. So the engagement that you'll be doing with local councillors or local councils, etc., will be about solving some of those problems in each of the areas moving forward.
Yes, it'll be about sitting down with the council and sharing with them our regional strategic agenda. We will have co-designed and co-developed it with them, so we'll both be equally aware of the challenges and any barriers to developing land assets. And then we hope that as positive partners, they'll engage with us and do what they can to unblock obstacles in their world while we're working what we need to do.
Okay. And just a point that struck me when you were answering Sinead's question about obviously we have the high level targets, and then we have markers and key indicators that you will consider with regard to investment. There's R&D, there's investment in infrastructure, there's investment in machinery, etc. Is there a scenario where, for example, a company will invest in R&D or technology, which will be considered investment, but may result in actually loss of employees as a result of the investment? Is that a scenario that could arise and that could still be considered investment with regard to the markers that you're using?
It's quite possible that that could happen, but I think it would be rare, because what companies are saying to me is, say for example in a case where a company automates some of its processes, that's a logical response to a situation where they're struggling to find people or to find skills. But what the companies are doing is they're then redeploying those people freed up by the investment in automation to get them to perform other activities within the firm. So in almost all the client meetings I've had, the clients have been saying to me, we want to upskill our existing people and we want to hire more people, but we're struggling to find them. So they're not having conversations with us about leaving people go.
Okay. So that would mean that wouldn't be considered a marker for investment that you would be using if it did result in less employees?
It's one of the factors that we would take into consideration, but again, everything is judged on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, fair enough. So just following on then, the green economy obviously has been identified as a priority area, and according to your own annual report, the target has not only been achieved but exceeded. So can I just ask, what aspects of the green economy, in terms of the investment geographically, where have that been, and what aspects within the green economy have resulted in the target being met?
So right now, in terms of the green economy, we have two teams. We have one team that oversees and manages an energy efficiency program. So it's about supporting companies, our clients, to reduce their energy consumption and to lower their carbon footprint. That program, which is relatively new, has been oversubscribed. There's tremendous interest in it. So relative to the original target that we had, that's actually been exceeded. So that's in the energy and renewable energy efficiency side. Then the other side, we have a green economy team that are looking globally at opportunities to win green investments for Northern Ireland through the FDI channel, but equally working with existing companies in Northern Ireland that have a sustainability or green economy proposition. One of those companies, for example, would be Artemis in Belfast, which is an iconic company now in terms of energy efficient green technology. So we've been supporting that and other companies to invest at the same time. Our plan is to merge those two teams, as one of the actions in the action plan is to create a dedicated green economy team. So we're going to merge those two teams by Q1 next year, potentially by the end of this year, to create that new dedicated green economy division. I can't be more specific in that and where the green economy investments have arisen across Northern Ireland.
City and growth deals is something specific, so the significant amount of the investments going into the 4 regions are involved in green areas. So digital twin is one associated with Artemis, AMIC, the advanced manufacturing, and then Mid-South West, just because it's just recently crossed my desk, the future of concrete and green hydrogen are significant investments that we're putting through the programme, which is aligned to and next to what the activity that Kieran just described.
You've literally really well brought me into my last question, which was about the growth deal, Causeway Coast and Glens, currently paused. I mean, how big an impact would that have if it wasn't unpaused in terms of the kind of work that you're doing and the kind of work that we all need to be doing to bring investment into particular regions?
Yeah, so the funding has been paused for those two, for the Mid-South West and Causeway Coast. So our activity hasn't paused internally. We remain committed and developing those projects, so that we're just sort of, the strategic case for Mid-South West has just been approved by our Permanent Secretary. We're working with partners on Causeway Coast to develop that outline case similarly. So we are proceeding on the basis that we will get a positive decision from Treasury at the budget. They are significant contributions to our economic infrastructure, and it will be a decision for an executive as to what you would do in the absence of a decision. But like I said, we're continuing positively because we recognise the value that they add to the economy.
Thank you. Thanks very much, both of you.
Sorry, Paul, you think you're going to get a response from the UK government at the end of this?
We are hopeful that the budget's the end of the month, 13th of October, so we're hopeful that will be a decision that's announced in the budget. If it's not in the budget, it falls into the spending review, which would be sort of April time, spring.
Yeah, that's just the date to which finance colleagues seem to be working towards, but I was just wondering, had you had any inside information?
Well, you'll know Treasury guards jealously, so but we're working on the assumption and continuing to progress it, so there's no time lost at our end.
No problem, gentlemen. Thank you all very much indeed. Really appreciate your time. We'll see you all very, very soon. So we will then just summarise agreed actions. So I have a note of some. Do you want to go first, Peter?
Okay, Chair. So I think we're writing to the department in respect of the 3-year bid, the 15 million for the sub-regional plan. It was previously indicated it was in the department's budget, but it appears in the bid information that we've received, so there's clarity on that. Also on the probable typo in respect of the BMAP investment, is it outside of BMAP 75% or 65%? We're seeking sight of the written advice on good jobs, regional balance, etc. We're just asking for clarity in respect of the international strategy and discussions at the executive around the overseas footprint for InvestNI. I think we're also asking the department for an update on its school engagement around entrepreneurship. Additionally, writing to InvestNI, asking them about Ms. Armstrong's question about land use and the impact of development plans. Also, quite a few questions about FDI. So it's the number over the last 5 years, but also the number that were site specific, where they, some of them they said were agnostic on terms of where they went and some were not. So it's clarity around that. That's all I had.
You had all that.
Very good.
Anybody, any others? Nope. Okay, members will then move on to correspondence. Item 2, members, is for noting. Are members content?
So members, we're on page 491. Is the item in question is about the employment bill, and so the department is going to come and brief us, I hope, at the end of November.
Content?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Item 3 is at page 495. Members are asked for a departmental response in respect of the PFG. Are members content? Thank you. Item 4, members are asked to note a departmental briefing paper on the 3-year budget information gathering exercise. This information exercise will inform the Department of Budget 25-26. Is the committee content to seek a departmental briefing early December when the draft budget is available, and also for this submission to the Department for Finance?
Is that agreed, members?
Yeah.
Committee for Finance, but yes, right.
Item 5, members are asked to note a departmental response indicating that the department is working with industry to develop a Northern Ireland-based multi-factor productivity data. Members content to note that. Thank you. Item 6, members are asked to note information on the August 24-25 outturn and forecast outturn budget position for all departments. Page 591, further information is provided on the August budget variance for the department. This includes around 12 million of overcommitment related to demand for FE courses and 1.8 million for match funding for Peace Plus. Members content to note, and we can raise these issues with financial colleagues when they come later in the year.
Yep.
Thank you. Item 7, members are asked to note a response on McGee expansion. Ulster University State is currently unable to provide a detailed breakdown of the 24-25 students and respective student numbers and course allocation details. Work on a projected breakdown of expected student numbers at the McGee campus is currently being developed. Is the committee content to note pending sight of the final report from the expansion task force, which will be available in January 2025, though I think Stephen Kelly said that maybe that would be December 24, and a briefing from the Ulster University, which is not yet been confirmed. Sinead.
Yeah, Chair. I welcome the letter from Paul Bartholomew, and he has indicated that he will have firm enrolment dates in December, and it's just if the clerk could contact him in December just to get those firm details of the final number of enrolment for this year, this academic year, plus the courses. And so just a reminder just to reach out in December and ask those details.
So, Chair, the committee agreed last week to write to Ulster University on other matters, but it also, included in that letter just in asking that they come back around about that time so that they could talk about numbers at May. They could talk about their business model based on their changes, reserve changes around immigration, which will have an impact on universities across these islands, across the United Kingdom. In respect of that, so talk about those matters as well as the matter that was raised. So members are content with that approach?
Agreed. Okay, thank you. Item 8, members are asked to note correspondence to the department from the Committee for Communities asking for information about engagement with disability for us. The committee content to note pending our briefing with disability action next month. Members agreed? Thank you. Item 9, members were asked to note the 23rd and 24th the report of the Examiner of Statutory Rules indicates she has no comments on SR 2024-146, the Industrial Training Levy Construction Industry Order, or any other ones that we have considered as a committee. Are members content to note? Thank you. Item 10, are members content to note correspondence from Sony regarding its winter outlook?
Yeah.
Thank you. Item 11, members are asked to note a copy of...
Oh, sorry.
Yes, of course.
No, just on the next item.
Okay. Item 11, page 657, members are asked to note a copy of correspondence from the Renewable Heat Association to the Minister. David.
Just raise some concern on this. So this is coming before the House, but the judgment saying and not to misquote it, but its consensual solution hopefully will be found, and that obviously hasn't happened. I'm really concerned about that, but I'm concerned about the lack of information that we have been given to make now a decision on that in the House. I've requested further information, hopefully received, but I just want to put it on record. You know, we've been asked to make a decision, but we are not been given the details of that.
It is on the record and well made, sir. Are members happy to note those correspondence? And then okay. Item 12, members are asked to note further correspondence from the RHA to the Northern Ireland office, and members content to note that also.
Is that agreed, members?
Yep. Okay. Item 13, page 665, members are asked to note a correspondence from Boots, Donegal Place, to discuss sustainable workforces and High Street. So members will probably receive individual invitations in their constituency capacities. I know I did one in North Belfast, so members content to take it forward on that approach. Okay, thank you. Item 14, members are content to note an invitation from the Law Society to an event which takes place tomorrow.
Members, are you content if the clerk just attends that one? It's about conveyancing and stuff, and trading standards are involved in it, so it would be interesting. Anyway, so if I can, I will attend, if that's okay.
Maybe interesting for you. Okay, that brings me to an end of correspondence. Forward work plan, Peter.
So members, the forward work programme is at page 686. Now the plan is that next week we'll do our strategic planning. This isn't ideal because we won't have the tourism strategy until November. I know Mr. Buckley's very interested in that, but I suggest we go ahead anyway because we know quite a bit. I'm also suggesting that we move the Work Plus briefing ahead to about the 20th of November, because although it looks like a lot, if you look at the 20th of November, you've got the tourism strategy, quite a lot to talk about there. That'll take us an hour and a half, an hour and 3/4. But the LCM and digital markets, I think that will go through very quickly. And therefore, the Work Plus, we should have a good hour to talk to them. So hopefully that will be okay if members are content. On the 27th of November, I think the plan is to have the department and also the Chamber of Commerce talking about employment bill. Now, the Chamber are telling me they want to be somewhere else, so they might have to do that remotely. So hopefully members will be content with that. It's not ideal, and we're still...
Look at a different date then. I just think it's better if we have them in person.
Okay, I will have a good chat with the Chamber of Commerce on that. So the plan then would be on the 4th of December is that, this isn't there in front of you now, but that will be a bit of a budget day when we could, I think, also have the update on the utility regulator preparation for decarbonisation bill on the 4th of December. So they're, I think, happy enough to do that. And then student loans, so we hopefully get Ulster University in on the 11th of the 12th, and then we could talk about student loans on January 2025. It's a bit away, but chatting to the department kind of briefly, they've written back to us, it's not in packs yet. The way it works, if I've understood them correctly, is the student loan company, they administer the loans, they don't give the loans. The actual, the loan is between the student and the department. And so although the policy is devolved, we in Northern Ireland tend to follow the rest of the UK to some degree for various, because for cost reasons. So it's really the department that can tell us about the policy and about repayments and all that good stuff. So I think it's, I don't expect the student loan company to come in January. I think it'll be the department, because it's the department that actually looks after the policy. And we'll tell you how much room to manoeuvre there may be on that subject. So if members are content with the forward work programme as amended.
Great. Oh, sorry, Jonathan. Sorry.
Sure. Just yes, and no problem with the current. I know we have conducted some outward visits, and there's some more that's scheduled in. It's just to put on the radar of the committee. The Game of Thrones site in Banbridge I've recently visited as a local MLA, but they were very keen if there was a conversation surrounding the creative industries at committee that they would be keen to host a visit of the committee. I think that's something that would be very exciting for the committee to do, and particularly given the huge benefits of the creative industry, it might be something that we want to explore at a later point. So I have no fixed date or no request given at this stage, but it's just something maybe we could factor in later down the line.
Agreed. Okay, thank you. Item 9 then, members. Any other business? Not seeing any then, members. The next formal session of the committee will take place next Wednesday, the 23rd of October at 10 a.m. here in Parliament Buildings. Members content that the committee do now adjourn. Committee will now adjourn.
Members, can I just ask you informally, Mr. Delargy wants his assistant to also attend the training you're about to.
Committee Room 30, Sound.